Chapter 1. I Take a Ride. To be quite honest about it, I have no very clear idea what happened in that private room at the Princeton Inn the night of the last nip-and-tuck baseball game with Yale, except that every one of the crowd, with the exception of myself, was anything but sober. There were Ruppel and Freen, Hewitt and Ashton, to mention only a few who were quarrelsome and ready to take exception to everything I said. I didn't mind particularly about Ruppel and Freen, but Bob Hewitt, being a particularly old friend, his condition pained me exceedingly. I don't recollect precisely what our particular difference was about, my memory being notoriously faulty over trifles, but I know that somehow Hewitt and I had become the focal point of interest for the crowd. They were gathered round our table, and something seemed to have happened. Perhaps I had said a brilliant thing worth remembering. I often do, for Tommy Ashton, who is a lawyer, had his fountain pen out and was busy writing. No doubt he intended to be my Boswell. He was smiling. So was everybody but Hewitt, who looked as serious as the war. "See here, Pete," said Hewitt, leaning over the table and eyeing me hard. "You take witness before all present that you're perfectly sober." "Of course I'm sober. Did you ever see me when I wasn't? I was born sober. Why do you persist in insinuating that I'm drunk instead of yourself?" "Oh, that's a particular failing of Hewitt's," laughed a fat voice, and to my astonishment I recognized Howard Ruppel. "Oh, hello," I greeted. "When did you blow in?" "With you," he chuckled. "You know I've been sitting next to you all evening. The hurry you have. You aren't a Princeton man, and you're old enough, and I dare say unmoral enough to be the father of us all." "I dare say," agreed Ruppel, patting his fat paunch. "But I was at the game, you know, and since you invited me here." Underscore. "I underscore invite you? Nonsense, how could I, when this is the first time I've seen you since, well, I forget how long. It doesn't matter anyway. I'm sorry to see that you're drunk, Ruppel. It isn't right. It isn't decent. Especially in an old man like you. You should set a good example. Have more honor for your graying hairs and our youthful purity. It's underscore you underscore who's drunk." "Drunk as a fool," said another voice. And again, to my astonishment, I recognized Arnold Freen. Of course, he had a perfect right to be there, but it was just like him to come sneaking in by a back door and slink among the crowd. A furtive fellow, Freen, with large, outstanding ears. Otherwise, he was quite handsome. That seemed designed expressly for listening at keyholes. There was no love lost between us, and to his ridiculous and monstrous charge concerning my sobriety, he now had the audacity to add that, like Ruppel, he had been present from the first, even sitting behind me at the ball game. Moreover, he stated that I had brought Ruppel to the feast by intimidation and violence, threatening him with mayhem, and I forget what else if he didn't join the party. "For that matter, you invited the whole town," finished Freen. "All the ragtag and bobtail, friends, I suppose, of your former days, and we had a hard time keeping them out." "You're drunk, Freen," I said. "Drunk like Ruppel. I'm sorry to see it, and I object to your face. Between ourselves, and speaking in strict privacy, I don't like it and never did. Take it away." "You're like all the Lawtons," he said. "You can't take a drink." "I can. I'll have one now." "Thanks for reminding me." "I'll have more than one, and then I'll remove your face. That face of yours and Ruppel's alleged funny stories are too much as a combination." "Oh, cut it out," exclaimed Hewitt, seizing my arm. "And you quit chipping him, Freen. Can't you stop your rowing? Don't get quarrelsome, Pete." "I'm not," I protested. "I'm the most peaceable man in the world. I'll fight anybody who says I'm not. Anybody. I'm the only sober man in the room, too. You know that, Bob. You're all half shot and trying to pick a row, but you can't do it with me. No, sir. I'm perfectly willing to fight anybody who says he can. Anybody. Only sober man in the room. Never more sober in my life. Very well, said Hewitt. That's what I've been trying to get at. You say you're perfectly sober. All right, now read over the agreement. It was the first I had heard of any agreement, but Hewitt being so far gone, poor fellow, much further gone than I had even suspected, I decided to humor him. You have to humor the drunk. It is the only way to deal with them. He was in that perverse state where, if I had even hinted a denial of any agreement, he would have claimed triumphantly that I was drunk and he sober. I confess, however, to astonishment when Ashton handed me a paper. But evidently, being a quick-witted fellow, he was helping me on the spur of the moment to humor poor Hewitt. And when I glanced at the paper, I saw he had been at some pains to fake up an agreement, though I could not quite grasp what it was all about, it being couched in the cloudy phraseology of the law which, coupled with Ashton's weird handwriting, rendered it quite unintelligible. Indeed, it made me dizzy to look at it, though. To humor poor Hewitt, I made a solemn pretense of reading it through. "Is that right?" asked Hewitt. "You understand it?" "Of course," I said angrily. Did he think I couldn't understand plain English put in plain writing? Very good. Then let it be signed and witnessed. Ashton handed me his pen. One of those foolish affairs that start off with dumping half their contents down your sleeve and then splutter all over the map. For that reason, I found some little difficulty in signing my name. "That's yours," said Hewitt. "Now sign my copy. Compare it with your own." I did so dutifully. And now Ashton's writing had so improved by practice that I was able to understand, amid a wilderness of whereases and aforesaids, the following words. And furthermore, I, Peter Lawton, being in full possession of all my faculties, do promise faithfully to earn my living by manual labor for a period of at least 1 month, dating from this 17th day of June, 1916. "Very well," I said, tossing the signed document back at Hewitt. "Because I came into a pot of money and you didn't, you've always been throwing it up to me. Because I don't have to work and you do, you're sore." "It's not that at all, Pete. You started this argument about being able to earn your own living even by manual labor. I did nothing of the kind." "You did. And every fellow here knows you did. You can only repudiate your signature and that agreement by admitting what you would never admit before, that you weren't capable of—" "I'm capable of anything. I mean everything," I exclaimed. "I'll show you and the whole crowd. I can't earn my own living, huh? I'll show you. I stand over my signature and repudiate nothing." I forget what else I said, but it must have been very witty. I seemed to be in a rather happy vein that evening, for they all laughed and clapped me on the back, all except Freen, who stood aloof with amused, sarcastic eyes. Then we all sang the old glees, and after an extremely pleasant time, of which I remember nothing, I found myself outside talking with my chauffeur. "Jensen," I said, "you're discharged. Who's got your job? _I_have. I've got to go to work right away, and the only thing I can do with my hands is to feed myself and run a car. I can't feed if I don't work. Ergo, you're discharged. I know your employer, too. He's a good fellow, one of the best. I approve of him, and if I have to work, I'd rather work for him." Jensen was a Swede and at times rather stupid. Unfortunately, this was one of the times, and, moreover, he had been drinking like everybody else but myself, a drunken Swede, a terrible combination. No wonder I found it impossible to get him to understand my simple and dramatic statement. "You ban my boss," he kept repeating like a litany, his bleak face never changing. "How you work for yourself? You make a yoke, yes? I make a yoke? No. I've got your job, and that's all there's to it." "But, boss—" "There are no buts, my friend. Didn't you say the other day you were thinking of making a change? Well, you made it. And don't let me hear you say again, "I tank you been drunk again, boss," or I'll put you past thinking anything. How could I be drunk again when I've never been drunk in my life? I am sorry to see that you've been at the bottle. However, I've now engaged a sober chauffeur. He blinked at me. You ban going to fire me? I ban. Here now immediately, if not sooner. I've got your job and I'll hang on to it. I'm going to take the old bus all the way home myself and run it in future. I've got your job. I'm working for Pete Lawton. It took some time for the truth to sink into Jensen's square dome, but when he saw I was quite sober and in deadly earnest, he accepted the situation like a philosopher, the more so, perhaps, as I handed him a $100 bill in mistake for 20. Anyway, he disappeared, though I don't remember seeing him go. I experienced some unexpected trouble in getting the car started and out of the parking space, but this was finally accomplished with the aid of a very obliging person with two faces, an oddity I had not remarked in him previously. 5 of the crowd, including Hewitt, were to return home with me to New York, but when I appeared with something of a flourish, if there is anything I can do, it's drive a car, and they saw I was minus Jensen, their behavior was very peculiar. It became downright insulting when they learned what had happened to Jensen, and that I meant to take the wheel myself. One and all positively declined to accompany me, and to further aggravate matters, they insinuated I was in no condition to drive even a baby carriage. "For the love of heaven, you mad devil, come out of there," cried Hewitt at length, springing on the running board and trying to shut off the spark. "You'll kill somebody, or break your fool neck."
"I'll break yours if you don't get off," I shouted above the roar of the engine. "I've stood your insults long enough. You jeer at me for not working. And then, when I get a job with a good employer, a fellow I like and approve of—" "One of you fellows run for a cop," cried Hewitt. "And say, can't the rest of you help me? Come on and do something. Don't you see he'll do what he says and that he isn't able to bite his finger?" "I don't want to bite it," I
cried. "But you evidently do." For he had followed his words by coming over the door like a cyclone. It only needed that personal contact, the employment of brute force, to snap my long-suffering patience and send my peaceful nature up in flame. I slung Hewitt into the road with one hand, while with the other I threw in the clutch. At the same moment Jensen appeared, and he and the other 4 fellows rushed me, followed by, it seemed, half the town. What happened next could only be described by half a dozen moving picture machines working together at top speed. The high-powered 6 gave a bound like a tiger, and I took the sharp turn into the high road at a 40-mile clip amid a parting scene that resembled a lunatic's dream of the Battle of the Marne. It was not until I had passed several towns that it began to dawn on me that someone had changed the map, placing New York in a remote corner, where I was unable to find it. Meanwhile, it was a lovely, warm, moonlight night. Indeed, there were several moons, and ceasing to brood over my wrongs, I began to find a certain pleasure in the ride. It would appear that neither Paul Revere nor John Gilpin had anything on me when it came to rousing public interest and enthusiasm. Everybody I met made way for me instantly as if I were a king, showering benedictions and good wishes after me in the most approved manner. In several towns, fire bells were rung, and the police force hastily mobilized. Even trolley cars stopped so that their passengers might have a glimpse of me as I passed. Women fainted with joy, and several horses ran away through sheer excitement. No one ever had such a tremendous popular ovation, such a triumphal procession. My heart was filled with gratitude toward all these good people, and if I had not been in such a hurry to find out what had happened to New York, I should certainly have stayed and accepted of their proffered hospitality. In due time, it occurred to me that rather than search at random, I had better make inquiries as to the new location of Manhattan, for I had an important engagement the following day, and it would prove rather awkward if at the last moment I discovered the city to have been shifted, say, to Alaska. For you never know what those fellows at the Topographical Bureau in Washington are up to. With me, to make up my mind is to act, and accordingly I now stopped the car and alighted. Perhaps it would have been just as well if the idea had come to me at another time and place, for now I discovered there was no one whom I could ask for information. In other words, I found myself absolutely alone on a deserted country road. I've always heard it said, I thought injuredly, that to make up one's mind and to act promptly is a great virtue. But see what it has done for me. Now I must tramp about here until I find somebody who knows where New York is. So I set off down the road. You will ask, perhaps, why I did not go in the car, but I have confessed to a memory that is faulty over trifles, and for the moment the trifling matter of the car had escaped me. The next scene, for somehow this night everything happened in scenes, found me at a crossroads, hat in hand, talking to a man and a girl. They sat in a town car de luxe, upholstered in maroon, electrically lighted within, and with a flower vase containing a bunch of violets that went wonderfully with the girl's hair. Her companion was a little dried-up old gentleman, rather foppishly dressed, and the color of bronze. I assure you he was not sunburned, nor was he a foreigner. His face and hands were a distinct and emphatic greenish bronze color, the like of which I had never seen before. I have no wish to criticize his looks, for I am not a handsome man myself. In fact, my cherished nickname at Old Nassau was Mug. Taken singly, and if transposed, I have been assured by friends that my features are quite classical. I mean, if my nose was turned upside down, and my nether lip projected inward instead of outward, and a good bit of my chin was shoved south, you get the idea. They are all good features, judged separately, but undoubtedly a serious mistake was made by somebody when they were being assembled. The result is a tumultuous something, with knobs and projections in unexpected places, properly termed a mug, even though I wore a mustache in order to veil the subject as decently as possible. The result was still a mug. Indeed, Arnold Freen would have had infinitely more reason to object to my face than I to his. He really had one worth looking at. Velvety brown eyes and all that Valentino stuff. I suppose I objected to it because it kept reminding me so poignantly of my own. No, I am not a handsome man, and yet, do you know, I made the greatest possible impression on the little bronze gentleman and his beautiful companion. I assure you I did. How? Why, by my manner and bearing. There is something princely about me. There is no other word for it, and, as I had noticed it before this evening, I needn't try to be mock-modest about it. That is infinitely superior to mere good looks. Real princes aren't handsome, nor princesses either, if you doubt it. Take a look at the family album of the crowned heads of Europe. I own a sort of royal and magnificent bearing that commands the utmost attention, homage, and respect. One is born that way. There is no acquiring it. The little bronze gentleman and the girl, from the moment I appeared, couldn't remove their eyes from me. And they had many eyes, indeed more than their fair share. They had at least half a dozen between them. I welcome the phenomenon in the girl's case, for one cannot have too much of a pretty thing, but the man's resembled holes burned in a blanket. "You are mistaken, sir," I said, endeavoring to explain the situation and correct the bronze man's ridiculous error that I had tried to get myself run over. "I am not a would-be suicide. The fact is, I have lost something of infinite value, and I wish merely to solicit the help of the first passer-by. "Oh, we must help him," said the girl. "Be quiet," snapped the little mummy. "What have you lost?" he demanded of me, tapping a Malacca cane against his thin shanks. "I have lost New York," I confided solemnly. "Eh? What's that?" He had begun to sniff as though preparatory to bursting into tears at the enormity of my misfortune, and against this contingency he now produced a flowered silk handkerchief and held it to his nose. I was touched deeply so. Such sympathetic souls are all too rare in this world. "Don't weep, sir," I said. "I can't bear to see you cry. True, I have lost New York, or rather it has been stolen from me. Some vandal has removed it. But no doubt you can help me find it. I must be in New York without fail tomorrow, for I have an appointment, which I can't neglect. In strict confidence, I may explain that I'm to be buried, so if I'm not there, how can there be a funeral? You see the point? Now, what would you advise?" "That you enter the alcoholic ward of the nearest hospital," he answered, with sudden and unwarranted ferocity. "Faugh! You smell like a distillery. Go away, you sot." "Anything to oblige, sir. Where underscore is underscore the nearest hospital, if you will kindly take me." "Get out of here," he roared. "Take your foot away, sir. Jules?" Jules was the chauffeur, and he appeared armed with a spanner. The proceedings became a trifle involved. Not that in the presence of the girl I had any idea of making a scene, but I considered it only due to my self-respect to correct the bronze man's erroneous conception of my character and condition, and this I endeavored to do with the utmost politeness and amiability. The girl appeared to understand my position, for her eyes, I now ascertained she had no more than the customary number, were quite sympathetic. I gathered that she wished to assist me, and no doubt referring to someone else. She stated that it was cruel and inhuman to leave them when it was plain to be seen that they were helpless as a baby. I was about to applaud her for this excellent sentiment when the little old gentleman banged the door in my face. Jules sent me sprawling, and the car whirled off, leaving me no wiser as to the fate of New York. Still, I was the better for the adventure, for it left me with the happy memory of a beautiful, gracious, and charming young girl. I now remembered my own car and hastened to leave the crossroads, down which the other had sped. I found my car where I had left it, and I found also a man cranking the engine. "Thank you so much," I said. "It's very kind of you to take the trouble. I've met quite a number of nice, obliging people tonight." Evidently, he had been so engrossed in his kindly, self-appointed task that he had not heard me approach, for at my words he jumped back, crank in hand, as if I had demanded his money or his life. I could see him quite plainly by the light of the several summer moons. He was a big fellow, about my own height and weight, and quite respectably dressed. It being a night of the most astounding phenomena, to mention only one fact, witnessed the several moons, to which I meant subsequently to direct the attention of Lick Observatory. I was not greatly astonished to discover that this new acquaintance had 6 fingers. I assure you he had. I saw them plainly as he held the crank, nor was this all, far from it. He was the proud possessor also of a miraculous mustache, capable of intelligent self-movement. I assure you of the truth of this too. When first he turned toward me, the mustache was in a most curious and humiliating position, one end pointing to his Adam's apple, the other to his right ear. You will agree that no ordinary mustache can act like that, even in its most abandoned moments. When next I looked at him, behold, it was in the conventional position, straight across his upper lip. An astounding, intelligent mustache that must be capable of moving automatically. It pleased and interested me exceedingly. It suggested the solution of many problems. Such an article would remove the terrors of eating soup, something of which I am very fond, but which I have given up attempting in public. Such a mustache could be adjusted, nay, commanded, to any position and no longer behave like a strainer. I must try and get mine to behave that way, ask him how he had trained his. "Say, is this your car, boss?" he asked in unaffected surprise. "I was going to take her to the nearest lockup, wherever that is. I thought she'd been swiped, see? You don't generally find such things laying around a country road this time of night. How'd you come to leave her?" Seeing he was such an altogether obliging fellow, distinguished, moreover, by owning 6 fingers and a movable mustache, I considered it only proper to explain how the car came to be there. He listened politely, scratching an ear with the tip of the crank, but I wasn't sure whether he had any better understanding than Jensen, for he had an absent-minded way of looking up and down the deserted road. "You now understand my predicament," I finished, taking out my wallet and giving him a bill for his thoughtfulness in cranking the car. "Perhaps you can tell me where New York is." "Sure, boss. You're almost in it. It's right over there." "Where?" "There," he said. "See the lights?" I turned to follow his pointing finger, and sure enough I saw the lights. Indeed, I never saw so many in my life as something fell upon my head with a resounding crash. Then the lights went out as suddenly as they had come, and I lost all interest in finding New York. Chapter 2. I Find a Job. I awoke some 12 hours later toward noon of the following day. I now knew that I, and I alone, had been drunk the previous night, and had got only what I deserved. I realized that Bob Hewitt had tried to save me from myself as he had done on other occasions, and I was filled with abysmal self-disgust. More, I experienced a lively dread when I thought of that mad ride from Princeton to Seabright, for it was near the latter place that it had ended. How had I escaped breaking my worthless neck, even granting the special providence which is supposed to watch over the fool, sober or otherwise? I remembered nothing of that ride but my meeting with the little bronze man and the girl, and whether this had really happened I did not know. Rather, considering the impossible coloring of the gentleman, I knew the whole affair was merely one of the many strange pictures of my delirium. I remembered also the agreement I had made with Hewitt, and of my discharging Jensen. But all else that happened was a complete blank. The Good Samaritan who took me in was an old farmer by the name of Taylor. It would seem that following my assault, the obliging stranger had not only made off with my car, but everything I carried, even down to the clothes I wore. Then he had deposited me behind a hedge, where I must have lain until early morning, for Taylor now told me that on his way to market he had found me crawling on my hands and knees from a field. "Of course, I wanted to let your folks know what had happened to you and where you was, Mr. Joyce, but I couldn't find out nohow where you come from," he finished, beaming on me with his kindly, faded blue eyes. "I haven't any folks nor many friends that would care what happened to me," I said truthfully. "How did you know my name was Joyce?" "Why, from the chauffeur's recommendation in your pocket." So my assailant was a chauffeur, out of a job, and desperate, no doubt. And he had been in such a hurry to exchange his clothes for mine that he had forgotten to remove the telltale paper. Now I had no desire to confess my true name and the circumstances leading to my assault and robbery, thereby providing a news item for the press. The less I said to anyone about that crazy ride of mine, the better. Dressed in my new outfit, I was, to Taylor, merely a chauffeur by the name of Joyce, and such I determined to remain for the time being. Accordingly, I gave him an imaginative account of myself and the night's happenings, yet it bore some resemblance to the truth. He was a kindly soul, and after giving me some homely advice about drinking too much, insisted on lending me $1, for which I was properly thankful. It represented my car fare home, for, placed as I was, I doubt if I could have raised a penny on my name, certainly not without the publicity I wished to avoid. This was the first kindness ever done me by a stranger without payment, or hope of reward since my coming into the Lawton fortune. The first tribute, as it were, to myself as a human being, and thinking this over as I left his humble dwelling, it occurred to me that I was missing much in life. Not wishing to return to New York until under cover of darkness, I set off aimlessly down the road, golden in the bright June sun. And presently, rounding a sharp bend, I came upon a girl and a car, both in distress. The machine, an expensive two-seater, had had a blowout, and its owner was eyeing the result. Evidently, her motoring knowledge did not extend to running repairs, and the car had no spare wheel or tire. Evidently, too, her helplessness had reached the point of exasperation, for I saw her give the damaged wheel a hearty kick, while she exclaimed, "There! Take that, you horrid old thing." "It's very provoking," I agreed, coming up, "but somehow kicking never seems to do it much good." She started and looked round, having been unaware of my approach. Then she looked me over carefully and severely. "I don't need a philosopher, thank you, but a mechanic. I've been stuck here for at least a week, and you're the first living thing that has come along. I hope Providence has sent someone that knows something about blowouts. Do you?" "Blowouts of all kinds are my specialty, madam." "I'm only interested in this particular kind. Please stop talking and get busy. I should have been at the station long ago." She had a very high-handed way with her, but then, too, she was very pretty. I know that every female in distress is supposed to be beautiful, but I can't help that. This one actually was. In fact, she was the girl I had seen the previous night in the town car de luxe, proving conclusively that that incident had really happened. Of course, if I had never seen her before, and if she had been aged, ugly, and infirm, it could not have obviated the necessity of my helping her. But I must admit, I would have found considerably less enthusiasm in the performance. Also, I would have worked faster. "You are very slow," she remarked as I jacked up the car. "Slow," I agreed. "But sure. Don't you use powder in your shoes?" "Sir?" "I was referring to the car," I explained humbly, displaying the interior of the shoe. "Oh," she said, biting her lip. "I didn't know you called that thing a shoe. Are you sure? And why should you use powder, may I ask?" This very severely and with dignity, as if she still suspected me of undue levity. So I explained the necessity of powder while she eyed me doubtfully. "Well, I don't know much about the subject," she conceded. "No more than to drive after a fashion. And the chauffeur we had was very careless. This is the first time I've ever had any vital interest in blowouts, and I think I can do no better than watch you carefully. I usually charge for giving lessons, but on this occasion I waived the fee." "You are very kind, but I refuse to accept it. I shall pay you." And she sat down on the running board, while I proceeded to affix the patch, not the first I had done, by any means, as Jensen could have testified. If necessary, I could have taken down and reassembled the engine. "You do it very well indeed," she conceded at length, her head at a critical angle. "Quite like a professional. But it does take an awfully long time, doesn't it?" "It all depends on the, audience." She pondered this and then decided that there was something offensive about it. Perhaps there was. But then she was really such a pretty girl, and, as I have observed, one cannot have too much of pretty things. "Please hurry," she said coldly. "I should have been at the station by this time. I'm sure I've missed the train. You will oblige me greatly by not dawdling any more. I don't care if it's sure so long as it's quick. All I want is for it to hold me till I get to the station." "It is very fortunate," I murmured. "You are impertinent, sir." "A congenital failing," I confessed. "Please go away. Leave me if you can't hurry, and have some manners." My task reluctantly finished at last, there now happened one of those apparently trivial incidents which so often decide not only the destinies of individuals but of nations, and which, viewed in the light of after events, seem like the working of Providence rather than chance. Much as I might care to prolong this agreeable meeting, agreeable in my estimation, I should have walked down the sunlit road and out of this charming girl's life, had I not instinctively searched my pockets for a handkerchief, something wherewith to wipe my hands. It always pays to be clean, for as I brought out a bandana from a side pocket, a sheet of paper came with it, and fluttering in the gentle breeze, fell at the girl's feet. A very appropriate action. She picked it up and was about to hand it to me when some writing which it evidently bore, and which she could not avoid seeing, caught her eye. Her expression changed, and she looked at me sharply with a new and, I might say, even proprietary interest. "Why, you're Joyce!" she exclaimed. How stupid of me not to have guessed it. I might have known it by the way you fixed that puncture. I suppose it's against the rules of the union to work any faster. I didn't think her at all stupid, and only wished I was equally good at guessing. "I am Mr. Varney's niece," she added. "Ah," I said. It was the only safe thing I could say. She handed me back the paper, which she had most obligingly refolded, so that I couldn't see a word of what was written on it. "I am Miss Gillette," she said. "Ah. I was on my way to the station to meet you, and you see why I didn't get there." "Ah. I suppose your trunk's at the station?" "Ah, that is... Oh, I mean, Goodness me," she exclaimed, stamping her foot. "Have you got sunstroke? And have you no manners? Are you rude as well as stupid? Don't you understand that I'm your new employer's niece?" Yes, my acute intelligence had unerringly reached that conclusion. That paper was the one Mr. Taylor had found in my pocket and which I had forgotten about. I wished now that I had read it. Tardily enough, I removed my cap, clicked my heels together, and imitated Jensen's bow. It is a very remarkable and striking bow. You bend lightly from the hips and then spring back like a child ducking for apples. "That's better," she conceded. "And now we'd better see about your trunk. Did you tell them to send it on?" "No, ma'am. You see, well, the fact is, I haven't got one." "What?" "It went astray, ma'am, but I'm sure it will turn up all right. I've lost more than that. I mean, ma'am, I've lost it more than once, and it has always turned up. It's a very hard trunk to lose. They make them that way. I don't see how they can. However, let me see, what is your first name? I've forgotten." "Peter, ma'am." "Well, Peter, I hope you'll give more satisfaction than your predecessor who left this morning. Now get that tire or shoe pumped." "Oh, it is pumped?" "Very well. Now take me to the Octagon." "Beg pardon, but where and what is that, ma'am?" "It's a hotel in Seabright. I forgot you weren't familiar with the neighborhood. Hurry up now." A few minutes later, we were riding down the back road the way I had come, the road that led to the station in Seabright. We passed Taylor's little farm, and if he had seen me, he certainly would have wondered how I had got in touch with my employer so soon. I think Miss Gillette had not forgiven me for having observed her loss of dignity and temper, her assault on the damaged wheel, and my unfortunate remarks, and I think it pleased her immensely to discover that I was the new chauffeur, she mistress, and I servant. For she queened it over me with such naive enjoyment that I should have hated to disillusion her. It was, "Peter, take that turn. Slow down, Peter. To your right, Peter," with a lofty condescension and dignity that tickled me greatly. We drew up to the big hotel, and she entered, leaving me in order to wait. The season, heightened by the promised coming of the president to the neighborhood, was only beginning, but the verandas were filled with the gay 4 o'clock throng. Well, I thought, Hewitt and those fellows said I couldn't get a job, and here I am. As for this fellow Joyce, a fair exchange is no robbery. He's got my car, and I've got his, and these folks are better for the deal. I've done them a service, for he would only have robbed them. The adventure, if such it can be called, was precisely the kind which Hewitt would have classified as peculiar only to myself, irresponsible, freakish, ridiculous. In brief, one of Pete Lawton's crazy escapades. And very likely he would have added the rider that I wasn't sober. How far I meant to pursue the incident I had no idea, but even at this stage I had a faint premonition of impending mystery. At least I couldn't help wondering why the chauffeur Joyce, if he was on his way to fill a good position, and not out of work and desperate, as I had supposed, should conceive the idea of knocking me on the head and stealing my car and all I carried. Where was the necessity? What the sense in doing such a reckless thing? And if you were not expected till today's afternoon train, how did it happen? I had met him in the neighborhood last night. While I was thinking over this, Miss Gillette appeared, and we proceeded to do some desultory shopping, a business I generally abhor. And as I was waiting for her at one store, a man came up to the car whom I recognized as Jules, the ex-chauffeur, who had sent me sprawling the previous night, and whose place I now filled. He failed to recognize me, but he knew the car. Evidently, he had been celebrating his discharge in various saloons instead of going home, and had absorbed just enough to be ugly. "So you're the new guy that's got the job up to Varney's?" he remarked, eyeing me disparagingly. "Well, that's all they're fit to have. A cheap bonehead from a correspondence school. They don't know how to treat a high-class man. Huh. A fine house to work for." "Look here," I said, finding that the more indifference I assumed, the louder he talked. "Run away and tell all that to Sweeney. I've troubles of my own." "Your troubles is only starting," he came back. "See if they ain't." And just then Miss Gillette came out of the tiara for the store. Jules turned upon her and proceeded to air his opinions more fully. He called her uncle a doddering old devil, and was starting on her with equally choice epithets, when I got him by the slack of the pants and gave him a good running start toward New York. I imagine the crowd that was gathering quickly thought us acting for the movies, for they cheered and then looked disappointed when I hopped back into the car and drove off. "Home, Peter. Rumson Road. First turn to the right," said Miss Gillette, with unimpaired dignity, but rather red in the face, and she sat bolt upright until we had covered several blocks. Then a dimple, whose hidden presence I had suspected, suddenly appeared, and she said in the sweet, gracious voice of last night, "Thank you, Peter. I see that you're going to do capitally, and I reverse my opinion of you. You're sure and quick, very quick when you want to be." We covered another block, and then she added, "That man Jules blames me for his discharge, but he discharged himself by his own conduct. My uncle, being an invalid, is rather short-tempered at times, but he's the best of employers. I'm telling you this because I don't want you to be prejudiced against the position by anything that man may have said. Chauffeurs, satisfactory ones, aren't easy to find these days, as you know." I thought of the many that had passed through my hands, and I silently agreed with her. "You will take all your orders virtually from me," she continued. "And if you do your work as it should be done, you won't find me a hard mistress to serve. Jules lost his position through drink, and I'm pleased to know you're a strict, total abstainer." I was filled with some inward confusion and repressed a strong desire to laugh. "The abuse of alcohol causes at least half the misery in the world," she went on. "And I must say it speaks well for a young man of your years that you've the sense to recognize that fact." As I was at least 5 years her senior, it was very refreshing to listen to this motherly advice. There followed a period of silence during which I sensed her stealing more than one glance at me. Many people have looked at me in that stealthy manner, my appearance meriting more than a cursory glance, but I felt that something was troubling her. I was right. I think, Peter, that I've seen you somewhere before, she remarked suddenly. Indeed, ma'am? Yes, indeed, Peter. I don't know when or where, but I'm quite sure about it. Your face has puzzled me. It has puzzled more than you, ma'am, in its day. It has even puzzled _me_. I don't understand you, Peter. You appear to have a gift for cryptic expressions. But I mean your face is not one to forget. It is not, ma'am, I agreed. I've tried it and failed. It is like that. You simply can't forget it. I'm puzzled at times to know if it really is a face. I know exactly what you mean, ma'am. You don't? Not in the least, she said with asperity. If I thought there was anything remarkably ugly about you, I shouldn't have mentioned it. However, I'm not in the habit of discussing. But I have seen you somewhere. I know I have. Perhaps it was at the British Bulldog Show, ma'am. I was there once, with my boss, and a nearsighted old judge tried to give me first prize. Honestly. I'm not in the mood for such attempted humor. A thing like this annoys me, not being able to remember. Stop the car, she finished peremptorily. I threw out the clutch and clapped on the brakes. Turning in her seat, she faced me with eyes hardening from suspicion to certainty. You're the man we nearly ran over last night, she exclaimed. Don't attempt to deny it, for you are. I knew I had seen you before. I realized that, unfortunately, prevarication was useless. All my great gifts in that direction would be wasted here. This little person was not merely ornamental. She had brains and knew how to use them. A tongue, too, by the way. Last night, ma'am, I said vaguely. Nearly run over, you say? Yes, I say it, and you know it. I must confess, I haven't a very clear recollection of what happened last night, I murmured contritely. Then I shall tell you, you were drunk. Drunk, you astonish me, ma'am. You do indeed. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible, probable, and a fact. You were disgracefully, hopelessly drunk. You needn't sit there and pretend you know nothing about it. And Mr. Fremstad assured my uncle that you were a teetotaler. What have you to say to that? Having nothing to say, I did not say it. I hung my head instead. Her eyes were contemptuous, her mouth as stern as its lines permitted. She was very angry and put out. Often I had felt the same way on discovering a jewel of a servant to be the customary paste. I felt sorry for her. I yearned to comfort her, to assure her, quite untruthfully, that I had never been drunk before. You chauffeurs are all alike, she exclaimed. If it isn't one thing, it's another. And the more satisfactory you seem, the worse you are. And so you deceived Mr. Fremstad and hoped to deceive us? Of course, it's quite impossible to engage you. I understand now why your trunk went astray. Well, you had better go and look for it. I can take the car home myself. I was starting obediently to climb past the wheel when she demanded, Where are you going now? Sit down, please. Why don't you say something? What should I say, madam? Oh, don't be stupid. Haven't you any explanation how you came to be in such a disgraceful condition? Or am I to infer it's your usual condition? I am not a narrow-minded person, and I quite understand that one unfortunate action doesn't necessarily condemn anyone. I can even believe it was your first offense, but I am clearly entitled to an explanation of some sort. Well, ma'am, you see it was this way, I began with the proper confusion. The Benevolent Brotherhood of Motor Mechanics gave their annual outing yesterday. It was very hot, as you recollect, and there was a lot of drinks going around. I was very thirsty. Up to a certain point, I suppose. I can imagine the rest. But how did you happen to be in this neighborhood last night? How did you come to leave Philadelphia? I made a fool of myself, ma'am, and got all muddled up. I got mixed on my dates. I thought I had to come here last night instead of today. I got off at Seabright and became lost. You know how it is when you're taking too much. No, I don't know anything of the kind. But you told us you wanted to find New York. Did I really, ma'am? It just shows what a fool I was. I'm sure I meant the Rumson Road. The truth is, I wasn't accountable for what I said. I quite realized that. You even imagined the appointment you had to keep was attendance at your own funeral. Where did you spend the night? At a small farm near the station, owned by a man called Taylor. And I told of my assault and robbery, approximately the same version I had given Taylor. She looked at me steadily for a long moment as I finished. It was a very disgraceful and humiliating experience, ma'am, which I've taken greatly to heart.